catastrophes.fm. Back again. Today I've got Patrick O'Hara. Patrick, before we get into it, your name on the screen says Pat R-C-I-K. Is this like a Polish spelling of Patrick, maybe?
It's actually, I'm introducing myself from the Communist Party. That's the Russian spelling of my name.
Okay, cool. Is this a big announcement on this show? Do I get an exclusive?
It's exclusive. Nobody knows. Not even my wife knew that. So it's like,
wow,
you're getting something. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? I hope you look good in red. That's all I'm saying. I think you would too.
So, you know, I'm actually, I'm trying to get them to change their colors to pink, which is a lighter shade of red.
Okay.
So
well, you know, saying pinko back in the day, I mean, you're asking to be pink at that
there
point,
you go.
You know, and maybe you can get pink as well. She's available. I've heard, you know.
Oh, well, dude, that would be a get right there.
Yeah. What a great Russian pink would be amazing. I'm imagining like Brigitte Nielsen from Rocky IV. You know,
yeah.
Just strong and it kind of, you know, puts him in his place where he needs to be. Drago. You'd be Drago, of course, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. I look like that, you know.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. We're going to get to you as a superhero in a movie later on. We got a lot to talk about. So today we're going to get into this awesome Deadpool book over here. This is Deadpool, Dead Presidents. And I'm going to throw a little bit of flex out there right now. I'm one of those guys that's going to say, I like Deadpool before he was popular. I had New Mutants 98. I still have it. I had the first series, Joe Kelly, and then he blows up. And I'm happy. I love all the new fans, but we get a lot of new books as well. We're going to talk about that. So, Patrick, you are a comedian. I would say at this point, a famous comedian within your circle of influence, right? You're famous in your circle.
I'm YouTube famous.
It's okay. Yeah. I mean, that counts. That's all you need to be. You know, have you seen that guy on the subways? That's his whole bit is subway comedy. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. He's hilarious, you know?
He is.
You can't obviously do that anymore, you know, because he's doing subways, but you know.
Right. And I live in North Carolina. I live where there isn't a lot of subways anyway, so I'd be kind of screwed.
You could go into Subway, the restaurant. Now that Gerry doesn't have a thing anymore, you could go into Subway, Subway, and start doing hey, like whatever you do, like juggle or, you know, dude, whatever your bit is.
I juggle and then I do prop comedy. So
that's right. Carrot Top. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but I'll tell you, Patrick, I was at your first ever comedy show.
You were.
First ever. And I remember one of your jokes, if a doctor is doing a colonoscopy and he stops in the middle, is that a semi-colonoscopy?
Yeah.
And you had a couple of groans, couple of laughs.
Couple of groans. But that's, you know, a lot of my jokes, I'll be honest with you, even to this day, that's the reaction I get. Because I tell a lot of one-liners that are just kind of on the, like, you know, oh, I can't believe you actually thought of that. Like I have a new one in my. If you don't mind me sharing a joke,
I'd love to have you share exclusive. I mean, we already know communist Pateric is already in, and obviously some new material is great.
Well, I have this joke in my act where I say that the past tense of a cucumber is a cucumber.
Oh, cucumber. Is that supposed to be like innuendo as well, or no?
No, not. Well, I guess for some people it might be. If you're using it for certain reasons, I guess.
Is your comedy's not really that blue though, right?
It's not really, no.
What color is it besides red and pink?
It's teal.
Oh, teal's good. Teal's nice. It's kind
color.
of it's definitely good reaction from the crowd too. They like that. I'll tell you, Patrick, you have been around the Chicago area and now you've moved onto the East Coast. You are basically, I would say, the first person when I got into radio was like, I think this guy has the job that I want to start off with. Okay. Do you remember, you and I worked at 95.9 The River, which, by the way, you're now the third River alumni on comics.fm. We had Nate Nelson, we had my friend Josh Aldis, and now we've got you. Obviously, our final episode is going to be Danielle, then the show's over, because you can't get any better than Danielle. You know?
No, Danielle would be a great get.
That's the tops right there. We were at an event, and you said to me, you're probably going to take my job one day.
I did.
And you said those words, and then a week later,
what happened?
You were I don't know. I don't know. You tell me. Were your services no longer needed, or was it like a ghosting?
It was kind of a ghosting, to be honest with you. The way that it happened, like they would put out the schedule, but I noticed that I was getting less and less hours each week. You know, and I was looking at it compared to other people's hours, and I was like, "This is curious. You know, it's interesting." And then they just stopped putting me on the schedule. And I was like, so what does this mean? And they're like, well, we're sorry to let you know, but we have to let you go. And I'm
Oh.
like, okay.
and and you're thinking, if I didn't ask, would I still work here?
I
Was it like
know.
you wanted me to ask that?
I could still show up to like remotes and be like, I don't know. According to them, I'm still employed.
I'm
So
gonna try to put a time card in like a little bin somewhere and see if I get paid. I don't know. We'll see how it works there. But that was something that I learned early on, that it's a weird industry, radio in general. It's not like cutthroat, like evil. It's more just weird and strange and passive aggressive and all these things where you just never really know where you stand ever.
right.
And at the same time, someone's getting told we don't have the budget to keep you on. They're bringing on people that are eating up the same budget that you would have. Like, why didn't you just tell me you don't like me? Well, I can't say I don't like you. It's just kind of strange. But I do remember toward the end, were you filling in on the morning show a couple times? Did you do that? Some of that?
I would do, yeah. It was on holidays when nobody was listening. Basically, is when I filled in. You know what I mean? It was like doing. It was more of like afternoon slots, like
Okay.
afternoons. I wasn't really doing. I think when we talked about Danielle formerly. I think she
Yeah.
had the morning spot, and then I did afternoons. But it was on holidays and
Yeah,
stuff
but it
like
was probably like while they were before they hired Scott, and like kind of like what are we gonna do and all that, and
yeah,
and I
yeah.
remember
So
early on meeting you, I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty funny, dry, very, you don't know what you're dealing with. We were at a remote, some listener came up, and I'm trying to observe. This is me, and you and I are like the same age, so like I'm thinking we're not young 20-year-old intern part-timers. We're, at this in the radio game, being 28 is like, you
you're a
should probably,
dinosaur.
yeah, right, exactly. So we're at an event and I'm like, okay, how does this guy interact? Because I want to kind of do what he's doing if I want to, get my first gig in here, go from intern to what you were, which was basically remote tech, whatever you
Yeah,
want to call it, producer.
yeah.
And I remember some guy came up, we're at like Meyer maybe, and some guy came up to you and he was wearing, God, it's so weird how my brain works, by the way. It he was wearing some kind of like pajama pants and they were like koala bears or something weird.
Yeah.
And you gave him a hard time about it. And I'm thinking, this guy's kind of a dick, but it's funny. It's fun because the person you're talking to could be a listener of the station. He could be
Right.
chosen to fill out a diary and give us ratings. And you're making fun of his pants. And then he
Yeah.
left. And you saw him again come by because I don't know, like maybe we hit people on the way in, the way out. And you're like, hey, you gonna go get some new pants? Those pajama pants. The guy's like, hey, like enough. Like he was getting irritated, and I
He
love
didn't appreciate it.
you were relentless on him for no reason, and I thought that was hilarious.
I was going for shock remote tech. They had shock jocks. I
Yeah,
was going
yeah.
for shock remote tech.
Shock remote tech. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
they don't
normally
want
you
to
could
be
be
known.
like, yeah, you say the dirty words and like Howard Stern and all this stuff. You're thinking, what about the guy that plugs in all this stuff? Can he
Is that
start swearing too?
is
Yeah, yeah,
he
he
out of
could.
control and making fun
Yeah,
of listeners, possible listeners, people who are now
possible
like,
listeners.
I'm not going
Yeah,
to listen to you anymore because this guy made fun of my pajama pants. It's
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it was
like
just kind of
8
like
a.m. on a Sunday morning when everybody's wearing pajama
it,
pants out.
right, but you singled him out, and I thought that was great that you targeted a random stranger for your own benefit, for your own laughter, maybe for mine, for whatever it was. I thought it was pretty great. I'm like, this guy gives no F's. And then of course, you were let go soon after. Not because of the pajamas though. I don't think there was correlation there with the pajama pant insult and also your demise there. I don't know. Yeah.
There might be a connection because I do remember the person who was running promotions at the time. She brought me in and she was like, I've been watching you and you don't really interact with the guests that much. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't say I was crazy because I
Yeah.
love that was part of my favorite part of the job was
Yeah.
interacting with strangers, talking to people. You know what I mean? Whether I was
Right.
making fun of their pants
Because
or
you can say whatever you want. Because here's the thing, we talk a lot on this show about behind the scenes of radio. And one of the great things is there's a built-in clout, I guess. You're wearing the radio shirt. You work
yeah,
for the company. Whoever you're talking to, if they stop, that means they think your job is cool. So you can get away with a lot. You can get away with making fun of a guy's pants. And
right.
in a weird way, it prepped you for comedy because you're doing crowd work and you can say whatever you want because you're the guy with the microphone, right?
And the way I looked at it too is it could be a possible way of getting listeners too, because that guy may have never heard of the river before, but now I'm making fun of his pants, and oh my gosh, you got Boston playing in the background. Yeah. Oh my gosh, they played Boston. Oh my god, it's great. I love this station. I think now I don't care about you're not going to see my pants on a daily basis, so whatever,
Well, and it's an experience. You made him leave. Anybody can give away a CD or a DVD, whatever he had at prizes, but when you give somebody an experience at that moment, they'll never forget it. I didn't forget it, and I was working there. I wasn't even the person that should have been wowed by your basically jerkiness towards his pants. I just thought that was pretty great, though. But over time, you and I kept in touch, and we made sure that, supportive in all of each other's ventures and all that. I think it's great the things that you've accomplished. You've done some work in TV, behind the scenes and all that. When did you decide that you're like, I'm going to get into comedy? I'm kind of done with broadcasting.
It was one of those situations where I was really funny I was talking to a girlfriend at the time, and I said she knew me for saying like funny stuff, right? Yep. And that was just privately, like private conversations. And she's like, my buddy's a comedian. You should try to do an open mic at this place where he frequents. And that's what led me to do it. I did the open mic because of an ex-girlfriend saying I was funny.
Wow. And that was the one that I went to, that first one because of that. Okay. Yeah. And I know we also did we do that Second City class too?
Yeah.
Go to that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I thought it was cool that you're trying to always just improve your game over time too. You do podcasts and videos, all that stuff, because it's all part of it. All of this is work in progress. Everything that we're all doing.
Oh, for sure.
It's never done. It's just, the next thing,
Right. I had actually started a TikTok, thinking I was going to be like TikTok famous.
Yeah.
And I would make these stupid videos and it's like nobody watched. And I was
okay,
I realized that's because I'm like in my 40s trying to be a TikTok superstar when that's probably
so are you dancing, number one?
No, I didn't do any dancing.
Okay, so there's no dance. Because if you're dancing and you're in your 40s and you look like you look, there's an audience for that. But if you're not even dancing, now you're not even doing the thing that I came for. So what else you got? And you come in with the cucumber bit. And are you going to keep them? Are they going to let? Because the TikTok videos, people watch 1 second. And they're like, no. That's why it's like, hey, this video had 10,000. Yeah, 10,000 like nanoseconds on that. You're trying to get them. So maybe grab the cucumber and be like, hey, cucumber. Like start with the punchline. Get them in. And they're like, cucumber? What the heck's a cucumber? I better watch more of this Patrick O'Hara fella. Find out what a cucumber is.
Well, and I like the idea because then I can further like promote myself by putting a link to OnlyFans down in the bottom. Yeah. See what I do with the cucumber next.
Okay. So I knew there was an ulterior motive, and I knew it was going to end up like that somewhere. Right. I think it's important that you've also put all your stuff out there, YouTube, everything, whatever the next thing is, you're always out there. And I do want to say too, do you remember years ago, we had kind of like a river. No, it wasn't a river get together. It was actually maybe just a few other people and we had a bit of it was like an eating contest that you signed up for. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So
I was hoping you'd bring this up.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So those watching, there was this restaurant, Wingtown.
Like Wing Joint or something.
Wingtown,
like that.
Yeah. Wing Joint, Wingtown. But it was actually a contest about their burger. So I remember going in there and they have like a wall of fame. And on this wall of fame are pictures of people. What did they do to get their picture on the wall? Well, they had to eat. I don't know if it had a name. Well, maybe it did, but essentially it was 2 half-pound patties. So basically a pound. And then it was like, 4. Sorry. 4 half-pounders. So it was a 2-pounder. So 4 half-pounds. And then between each burger was cheese. And then there was bacon as well. Yeah. And there was fries and there was onion rings. And I think it was like a $20 meal, maybe even 25.
It might have been 30.
It might have been 30, yeah. And if you eat the whole thing, you get it for free and you get your picture on the wall of fame.
And you get a t-shirt.
And so I remember looking at this wall of fame and it's, high profiles, right? you're going to the bathroom, you're going to see the wall of fame out there. And you're like, what is that about? And there was a guy's picture on there. And I don't remember his real name, but it had a nickname. And it was something, the Wolf, and then his last name, like Joe the Wolf Smith. It was like the Wolf.
Right.
And underneath his name, it said the Wolf, it said 8 minutes. So he ate this thing, not in 30 minutes, which was the contest. He ate it in 8 minutes. He's the Wolf. He's got the top spot on the wall of fame at Wingtown Grill. And so we tell you about this. And I don't remember why, Patrick, you were tapped to do this. Like, were you bragging about your eating prowess? Like at one time, like, I could do that. Like, was it like, okay, go ahead.
Wasn't it that I was trying to get you guys to wait for me so I could hang out because you guys were going to go out to eat. And I was like, wait for me. And I was like, if you guys wait for me, I'll do the challenge or something like that. Wasn't it?
Oh, because maybe you were like running late. You were like running late or something.
Yeah.
And you said, you know what? I'll do that. That was the trade-off. You'll do the challenge if we wait for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how it turned out.
That's hilarious. And so we're all eating just regular, whatever, just, a couple of wings here and there, modest lunches, whatever we had. And all of a sudden they bring by this monstrous plate. It was by itself, the burger took up a whole plate. Then there was a plate of onion rings and fries.
Yeah.
And you had this 2-pound burger, tons of bacon, tons of cheese, all that. And you're eating it. And your face is getting red because you're just like, just downing this. You're just like
sweating.
I can tell you're getting hot. You're just, and then the timer starts, like the actual, like, you got a minute left, whatever the workers there come by and they say something and you're shoving it in. And we're thinking there's no way. There was way too much in your plate. Cause if I recall, you had the burger, but then it got to the point with like the fries and everything. I'm like, man, like there's no way. Like he's having a hard time already getting it down. You shoved everything in. It was like 10. Like the owner comes out. He's like, 10, 9, 8. And you're shoving everything in your mouth. And it's like cheeks out there, like an old jazz trumpet player. You got the cheeks with all kinds of fries, meat, onion rings, everything all in there. They're like, time. And everyone's cheering you on. That wasn't the end of it, though. Then you proceeded to spit out a good chunk of what was not digested.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when the judges were like, all right, what do we got going on here? Do we have somebody who digested this? Or do we have just like I shoved it in? Because I remember it's kind of embedded in my brain. It would be like if you ordered mashed potatoes, except you didn't order mashed potatoes. You mashed the fries into potatoes. That got spit back out into the plates. Did you think at that moment, you're like, oh man, I blew it. I should have just possibly choked and died because that could have happened. And you were trying to not do that. Do you think I just blew it? I spit it out. I'm not going to get it. Like, did you actually think you had it at that time?
No, because actually, I don't know if you remember this, but the rules were as long as the food was in your mouth, you won.
Oh, that was in the rules?
Yeah, that was in the rules. Like as long as you had the plate clean and every piece of food was in your mouth at the time when the timer ran out. I don't know if they changed rules for me just so they could have another winner or not. Maybe. But that was why I was shoving everything in my mouth because they said if you have everything in your mouth, you win.
Okay. So I'm guessing maybe, when you got like someone like the Wolf there, right? The Wolf is doing it in 8 minutes and it's like, come on. And all of a sudden they're like, we're not getting any more wolves. Like we have the Wolf and we can't have a wall of fame with one picture. So they're like, you know what? It's like, let's loosen up the rules a little bit. How about if he shoves it all in his mouth? Okay, we'll do that. Because then they know at that point they can get you. Because that's what you had that last gasp of like, get it all in. So. And
fries are always my undoing. I don't know if anybody else has this reaction to fries, but like I have a bad gag reflex with fries. Like,
really?
If I eat too many fries at once, all of a sudden I feel like I'm gonna like relieve myself of them through my mouth.
Oh, wow. I don't have that with fries. The closest I came to probably what you're describing is it was a Raising Cane's, and it's always the joke in my head because they have a thing called the Caniac combo, but I call it the cardiac combo because I actually did almost have a heart attack while eating all those. in my car, which is also like the loser way to eat Raising Cane's. It's already bad. You're eating like 6 chicken strips and 2 Texas toast and the fries, but then it's alone in your car. It's like, is this where I die? Is it with a Raising Cane's in my car? It's awful. So cardiac combo is what I always call that one.
And like they were probably watching on their, if they were anything like me at work, where I saw somebody alone eating in their car, that became my entertainment.
Oh, you're watching them eat. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I'd sit there and be like, okay, well, this guy has a lot going on. He's eating alone in his car. And,
yeah. Maybe a little play-by-play, like see kind of like, oh, he's doing a lot of fries at once. Hey man, savor that thing. No need to shove it. They're not going anywhere.
He doesn't look well. He doesn't. He's having a heart attack. I don't.
Yeah. Oh. And no one's going to save him because, hey, come on.
Right. Well, it's better for TV and YouTube and hits like that on social media. If you get the guy dying.
Yeah, take your phone out, get him dying. No reason to save. We're not doing that. So, Patrick, I want to talk about the book I gave you was Deadpool, Dead Presidents. And this version of it here, it's actually a different version than I originally had. I had the original trade paperback that was, soft cover, and there was several in this series. And by the way, it's the second book we covered on Comics.fm in a row, written by comedian Brian Posehn. Brian Posehn and Gerry Duggan do the writing, and the art on this one is from Tony Moore. This is like some kind of different version. They're compiling a bunch of the best Deadpool stories.
Yeah.
Because this is 201, this was actually not called that when I bought it. So 66. So some kind of other series, but I thought hardcover is always nice to get that. And I think this might be made in another country because the pricing on the back is UK and it's got pounds. I don't see any dollars in there. So like almost like an import CD back in the day. What I like was it's that all killer, no filler. I believe also a Sum 41 album. And this book basically says, Deadpool, the presidents are back. Yeah. So what do you mean the presidents are back? Well, they're back in zombie form and they're ready to take over. George Washington's going to build an army to take over. I assigned this book to you, Patrick, one, because, Deadpool and I have a long history together and he always uses comedy to diffuse situations. And Deadpool's had a lot go on in his life before. You've had a lot go on in your life before. A lot of your comedy routine is based on some of the medical things that have happened to you. So a lot of that, Deadpool, you guys have the same thing in common. Both have had cancer, but not Canadian.
And I can actually die, unlike Deadpool. Like if you blow me up, I'm smithereens. I'm done for. I mean.
Yeah,
like,
you don't have a healing factor. Deadpool. His cancer wasn't cured, but it's constantly regenerating his body. Right. So he's always dying, but never actually dead.
Right.
And what I thought was cool was, having an awesome character like Deadpool for the first time we covered him on Comics.fm, bringing you on, knowing that you also use comedy as a weapon, along with fighting ability and katanas and all of that stuff. Yeah. So in this book, one thing I really loved about Dead Presidents Deadpool is they actually have, and this is 2013, I think it came out. So, okay. or maybe even been earlier. There is talk of like, oh, wait till you guys get a hold of Bill Clinton, that kind of stuff. I believe the most recent president in here, because Jimmy Carter was still alive. Right. And I think, isn't there a bit in here where he's like, hey, I'm still alive? And obviously now he's not, but there was a part in the book. It was like the Bring Out Your Dead and Monty Python Holy Grail. Like, I'm still alive.
I'm still alive.
It was in there. And the funny thing is, so Ben Franklin, not a president, and Deadpool's always confused by that because as a Canadian, he doesn't know our stuff. Ben Franklin is a ghost. He's actually not an evil zombie dead president. And Ben, he's kind of like our little spiritual guide throughout the whole journey here, right?
He is, when, Deadpool, you're used to him sort of like breaking the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do a lot of that in this book or in these books or however many books it covers. But more or less, he does it through Ben Franklin, the breaking of the fourth wall. Because nobody else can see him except for him.
Yeah, so it's kind of his way of talking to the audience there. Yeah, there is a moment, because at the beginning of the book, there's some other characters. So you'll see Doctor Strange, Captain America, She-Hulk, I think Dazzler's in there, Emma Frost is in there. There's other characters in the book that make little cameos throughout there. There is one panel, let's see if this comes out. If you're watching the YouTube version up on here, but there's a part where he's like, oh, well, they'll know. It's like, who's they? It'll take too long to explain on there. And so he kind of does it for a moment, but then realizes, yeah, not in this book. And I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah. This being, I think, the first book from Brian Posehn and Gerry Duggan. They did other ones after. They're not anything Dead Presidents related, but this was the first 6-issue series, their first trade and their story arc of this writing team, And so to start off with that, I think was pretty hilarious to basically say every single president's covered. And I thought it was great that even the lesser known ones are covered, like James Polk and Millard Fillmore, but they're not doing anything. They're just like quickly disposed of,
They're there for a second, and it's almost like their presidency, you know what I mean? Like a blip on the TV screen.
Like what'd you do? Like there was, we didn't have a lot of recorded history at certain times. So unless you did something big, I don't know if we're going to get credit for it on there.
Yeah. Your biggest thing was being a president, but you didn't, what?
Yeah. Right.
Who were president?
And who was running? Like what, was the competition that bad? Did you have
ran against the potato?
Yeah. Right. Potato got some votes too, Did you have a favorite panel in this book?
I did. I actually marked. Is it okay if I show you my favorite?
I would love show and tell because I want to get those YouTube views up.
I actually have a couple, if that's okay.
I would love a couple of them.
So this one was my first favorite. I'm starting to see if it. Yep. You see it where it says shows the newspaper of Captain America decapitating Truman.
That's right.
And he says like, you can't have Captain America decapitating President Truman on the front cover or something like that. Yeah. I saw that was kind of funny.
And a little nod to, because what was it, Truman or Dewey beats Truman? Wasn't that the old headline? That was the wrong headline there. Yeah, so that's good. There's a ton for like president type geeks, and I know you'll post a lot of things about current modern day presidents on social media. So I also knew this was a good book, but there's a lot of little nods and Easter eggs of sorts to people who, have some kind of interest in presidential history,
There's a lot of presidential knowledge. I learned a lot from reading this book.
Yeah.
I didn't know, and this is my second favorite panel. I didn't know Abraham Lincoln was a fan of the chair shot.
Well, yes, I didn't know that either. And by the way, I'm along the same lines. My favorite, we're going to show you the other one there, is my favorite is really just a one kind of page artwork there of the cage match with Deadpool and Lincoln there.
Lincoln's ripped too.
He is,
I didn't realize.
And he was a wrestler. Yeah. So there was that. And there's some talk in there. Deadpool's like, tag me in. They're like, this is cage fighting. And we're not tagging people in. Because Deadpool's only knowledge of fighting is pro wrestling, of course. As a Canadian, that does check out too, That's what Canadians know. Pro wrestling is a sport up there. So I think, there's definitely a lot of that goes on in here where, from Washington, and there's some great Nixon stuff in there. That's always good.
Some of the Nixon stuff was probably the best in terms of, I think the writing was spot on when they were talking about with Nixon. Every time they got a jab in on Nixon, I was just like, this is pretty good, actually.
The Nixon jabs were good. I love that in any time they were talking or had JFK talking, it was like the voice. It's like, and you read it with the you heard it with the Boston accent. He's like, hold on, let me tell you now. And there's it's really funny too, and I didn't even plan this, but the last episode of Comics Out of Femme with Josh Aldis was another Brian Posehn book. That was one where they went back in time and messed with Lincoln. They drew a penis on Lincoln's head, and they saw JFK was sort of like, cross-dress, things going on back there. And so some similarities, I think, definitely has a little bit of a presidential soft spot / fetish, I believe.
That actually made me, when I saw Brian Posehn was one of the writers, it made me very excited to read because I love his stand-up. And
it's great. Yeah.
If you haven't seen his stand-up, I recommend it. It's very dry, but it's very
not a recent one though. You mean or no? Or is there a recent one or from way back?
Oh no, I'm just talking about anything he does.
Oh, in general, yeah.
Just in general, anything.
I saw. Was he on that tour? It was called the Comedians of Comedy. A year with Patton Oswalt. I think he was on. I think
he was on that.
Yeah, I think I saw him in Chicago. I think it was him, Patton Oswalt, Doug Benson, and Maria Bamford. I think was the other one. And that was pretty good. I mean, four
That's a great
comedians.
lineup right
Yeah,
there.
it was pretty great. So he was really good. And from Mr. Show Days, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. So he wasn't like a major player on there, but whenever he came on there, and he's one of those guys when he's in stuff, like Just Shoot Me and other things, like, you're like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah.
And
he's also, he's a that guy actor where you're like, I know it. I just don't know his name, but I've seen him in everything.
Yeah. And he's a heavy metal guy too. So there's some, there's always little nods to that everywhere. But having the fact that they covered, at this point, it would have been maybe 40-ish presidents. There was a moment reading this where I'm thinking, are they getting all of them? And then they even say things like, all right, we got 10 left. We got 8 of them left. Almost like if you're keeping at home a running tally, like you're watching baseball and you keep score. You could keep score on all the presidents they re-kill because they were dead already, and then they're killing them again.
One of my favorite, I didn't put this in as one of my favorite scenes, but did you remember the montage part where he's killing a bunch of presidents all in a row and every name, and they tell you to listen? Can't remember the name of the Pantera song.
Oh, was it? Was it 5 Minutes Alone, or was it?
I think so.
Yeah. So.
And did you actually? I actually put the Pantera song on while I read that because
I should because
it adds so much more.
You followed instructions. I should have done that. You know what? I'm going to reread it, at least that panel, and I'll put the song on there. This necromancer resurrects George Washington and some other dead presidents there, and now they are looking to basically take over, build an army of undead, take over the country. They don't like where we're headed, and part of it is they can't involve the Avengers because it's kind of embarrassing. This is happening. So who can we count on to kill people, basically kill presidents that he has no conscience, he's Canadian, doesn't really care anyway, and basically, who can we trust with this special mission? And it's only Deadpool, the only option, That
was, to me, that was, I think, the obvious choice. Like, you couldn't do, this couldn't be like, you couldn't have the Incredible Hulk against dead presidents.
No, and there was even there was a few times where they were talking to Doctor Strange involved 'cause he's trying to help how to take out the necromancer, and there's just a lot of moments that have some cameos from other superheroes. But ultimately, though, it is Deadpool with his friendly Shield agent Preston and Benjamin Franklin, the Ghost, trying to take out all of those presidents. And so, if you're a fan of any of that stuff, I had a book when I was a kid, total nerd book. It was called Facts and Fun About the Presidents. And it was a book I loved when I was like 8 or 9 years old. All these weird little things that some of them I still remember, like James Madison was the shortest and Taft was the heaviest, which they talk about Taft in there too as a pretty big boy in there. And like Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln, and Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy, and all the little nuances of all that stuff. So as like an old timey, like as a kid president nerd, I also love that too, because they brought everybody back in this one.
Well, that was I had one of those books too when I was a kid, and it was like, Lincoln lived in a log cabin, and President Kennedy's favorite syrup was log cabin syrup. And,
there's a lot of those. I mean, that by the way, as like a tangent, I'm pretty sure you can look up Lincoln and Kennedy, and there's like 50 things. There's one was shot in the Ford Theater, one was shot in a Ford. You can use that in your routine if you want. It'll kill. It'll kill. But there's so many of those in there, and a lot of just little nods to everything there. And I think the Reagan stuff, the Nixon stuff, the Kennedy stuff was all really good. The modern day presidents hit home with us much more because there's a lot more to work with there. Whereas you can make a wisecrack about, John Quincy Adams and like, I don't get it,
Yeah. I had to look up whether or not Abraham Lincoln was a boxer or not because that's his thing.
I thought he was like almost like a boxer, like strongman wrestler, like, come on, everybody. Like, if you're looking for a way to get votes, just beat everybody up. I love that,
Didn't he box a kangaroo or something like that?
If not, we can write that in.
I know.
We can retcon that,
You can.
He might have.
Everybody can write something on Wikipedia nowadays. So
of course we can. Yeah. We can do an entry for the kangaroo and also for as well. But there's so much of that on there that some of them have accents that you read it in their voices. So pretty great. If you are what I would call a movie Marvel fan, so you watch all the movies, that, and obviously everyone loves Deadpool, and you're like, I don't really read comics. This is one of those. I do a lot of what I call normie comics on this show because I want part of this to be gatekeeping, not gatekeeping, more like reservations about, I don't really care about comics. That's fine. It is another medium though, much like TV and movies. And I'm not trying to make everyone into a full on superhero nerd, but part of why I do this show is I want to show people that it is just like watching a TV show or a movie. And when a book is self-contained, usually a trade paperback where the whole story arc is in there, you can feel good about picking this up, reading it cover to cover, takes about an hour, and you're like, wow, I went on that ride. If you know other characters, great, good for you. But you don't really have to. It really doesn't impact the story at all. And that's what I love about this book too.
That's what, because I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of a comic book normie. I'll read like some of the bigger ones, you know what I mean? Like I have a copy of my own Watchmen and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, great book. Yeah.
Yeah, great. But I'm not like I'm not like a regular comic book. I wish I was. My money goes to vinyl records. Yeah. So it's like, I had to make a choice, but like, because both are very, both can be an expensive habit.
Those are expensive hobbies. And, comics are interesting because if you actually collect issues, it can get pricey. But if you my recommendation is always have someone tell you what a good story is and then go and just get that one. And usually it's like 10, 15, $20 and you can usually get away with that. You don't have to collect the issues. So there's definitely ways. Some people are reading them online. When we talk to James on Oslo, he reads them all online. He doesn't buy really a whole lot of issues anymore. And side note, you were pretty psyched that I got JVO on the show, huh?
Love it, dude. I'm a huge JVO fan, dude. And the fact that I'm going to be on a channel the same as JVO, that's how much of a JVO nerd I am. I'm excited. I keep thinking maybe he'll watch this, and then
I bet he will.
He'll be like, "That guy's a funny comedian. I'm going to make him skyrocket." I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you can be a guest on Carcon Carne. Maybe.
One of my comedian friends was actually a couple. He's been on there a couple of times. So
who's that?
Mike Stricker.
Oh, nice. Is he a Chicago comedian?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He's a funny dude. But a little plug for him. There's
that. Right. That's what we're here for. No, I think it's great. I was excited because, that was my history too with Q101, growing up with that. It's like, come on, how do I not? That was my first one where I'm like, okay, all these other episodes are me talking to my friends. Let's see if someone who really doesn't know me, and then here's my stalker story where I played him on a demo tape.
I loved when you were telling him that story because you could see his face and he was like, oh my God.
He's like, oh my God. He wants to chop me up and put him in a jar next to his bed. I'm like, yeah, I do. I would say half the books I cover are going to be superhero, maybe even less. Most of them are going to be just obscure comics people have never heard of, horror or like thriller, sci-fi, mystery, whatever. And I'm going to throw some, I've done some Batman ones, that kind of thing. There'll be some of those in there, but I want to just kind of promote the medium while talking to people who have some kind of radio background.
Yeah, for sure. And you do a good job of that. That's for sure. I have seen some, I'm not one of those people who's like, yeah, I've seen a couple episodes and I haven't. I've actually watched a few.
That's great. Well, listen,
and I'm a fan.
I need the views.
Well, there you go. I watch you on multiple mediums. So really, you're getting like double the views.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then I watch you on the iPad too. Boom.
Yeah, that's what I love. Give me the YouTube on multiple, the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get them, and then the short. Yeah, Max. In fact, if you want to, maybe even hire a click farm in India to click a bunch of things for me. I'll take that. I'll take that as well. So, Patrick, with the radio background and the comedy background, who would you say is your favorite or coolest celebrity you've ever run into?
I was thinking about this, and it's got to be Adam Ferrara. He's the comedian Adam Ferrara?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Not Gerry Ferrara. Gerry Ferrara was Turtle, not to be confused.
But yeah, I actually got to share a green room with Adam Ferrara, which was kind of cool. It was kind of cool because he was just a normal person. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, hey, I'm trying to be funny. He was just, hey, I'm a normal person. Me being a starting stand-up comedian had a bunch of questions, and he was like cool with answering them.
Yeah. How great is it when you meet someone that is in your field and you sort of, I don't want to say idolize, but you look up to as like as someone who's successful in that, and they don't let you down. they actually are cool. That's like the best feeling ever, because that's, to me, that's a scary thing when you meet someone and you're like, oh my God, they're a dick. Like that sucks.
Well, that reminds me, one of my this didn't happen through radio, but I was working at I used to work at Sox Park as a ticket taker, and
Nice.
a couple of times I got to work the gate where the players' wives came in. Right.
Okay.
Well, this particular day, they were putting up a statue of Carlton Fisk.
Okay.
So Carlton Fisk had to come through the women's entrance when he entered. I grew up loving Carlton Fisk. That was like
your guy. Okay.
my guy. I was like, if I ever meet him, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to get an autograph.
Yeah.
So this happened. I seriously saw Carlton Fisk, and I said, Mr. Fisk, I'll probably get fired for this, but I would love for you to give me an autograph right now.
Okay.
And he said, I don't do that.
Oh. Wow. I don't do that.
He said, I don't do that. And I was like, dude, I just told you I could risk my job doing this. You can't even just write your name down on like this piece of paper I have.
And this is pre-cell phone or pre-selfie, basically. So,
right.
I mean, it's an autograph, dude. Like, you know how many times you've run into people and they autograph $1 or a napkin? You know what I mean? It's all you're asking for. To say I don't do that is awful.
It was like, honestly, the autograph I wanted him to sign was a ticket that wasn't going to be used, because I knew this particular wife was famous for not showing up to things.
Oh, so almost like a commemorative, not used ticket. You were going to have him sign that.
Yes, I had this already in my head. I was like I said, I'll probably lose my job for this, but I just want this autograph because I never thought I'd meet you before. Yeah. And I've met my favorite player, person I idolize from my childhood to my teens. And then he said, I don't do that. And I'm like, wait, what don't you do? Do you not tell people that I asked you for your autograph so I don't lose my job?
Right, exactly.
Cool. That's cool. Exactly. You don't do that.
Now, was he still your favorite player afterwards?
No, I hated him.
Still do?
Yeah, to this day. Yeah. To this day, I have right. I was like, I'm
gonna tag him when I post this one.
That's fine.
Okay. Oh boy, would you, if you got an autograph from him and he apologized, would you feel better about it?
I don't know, because I'm kind of I'm like, now I'm at this age where I'm kind of like, I know that like autographs are worthless.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's just a signed piece of paper that what am I going to do with it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Now it's just another piece of like paper. I have to figure out where it's going to go. And so,
it's hard because now I remember my dad had this, we had it on our shelf forever. It was a Michael Jordan signed basketball. And then after he passed away, me and my brother went to get it authenticated. We paid $100 to get it authenticated. And the guy said it was fake.
Oh no.
Yeah. We paid $100 to have somebody tell me it's fake.
Oh,
like we were livid. Like I was like this. And like my dad got it from a friend of his who ran like a collectible store. So we don't know it. We know I did actually meet Michael Jordan when I was a kid, but it was well before I was like into autographs. It was just kind of like he was at a car dealership and it was like a little kid, but like it would have been great. But this ball though, we had it on our shelf for so long. Like that's a Michael Jordan basketball. How cool is that? And then we're thinking, let's get it authenticated because then it's get the certificate. And if we ever wanted to sell it, now instead of selling it for $200, we could sell it for $2,000, but whatever. We just thought it would be good to do. And we paid to have them say it was fake. And there's a good chance they put like a stamp in there, like a hologram that says fake. Like if you try to
take they do that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just paranoid, but maybe I could have been like,
I thought they actually did that, and I was like, "No way!"
I mean, maybe who knows? But or they just say, "Go ahead and spend another $100," you know. And so that was. But to your point about it's more about the moment, and that's why I like to this day, I really don't care about autographs. I would like a picture sometimes. I think that's pretty fun, just because that's always a fun memory. But yeah, so I'm going to work on getting you a Carlton Fisk autograph.
Okay, and, we'll see if that heals the past wounds then.
See if it heals. Yeah, heals the wounds there. And maybe you guys can, it's like a where are they now moment. We'll do it on this show.
Well, it's funny because, you did ask me to think of like famous people I've met.
Yeah.
And the last famous person that I thought I met was the bassist from Green Jelly.
Oh,
and
okay.
If you don't remember Green Jelly, they had the song
Three Little Pigs.
Three Little Pigs, right?
Yeah.
And it was a claymation video. At the time, it was like pretty funny. Everybody
little pig, let me in. And then what do they say?
Yeah, exactly. Just like, see, you just acted it out for
it. That was it. You don't need the bassist. Usually you don't in general, but yeah.
but I posted on Instagram that I met the bassist from Green Jelly because I'm thinking this is the weirdest celebrity sighting ever. Right. Like he's working at Home Depot right now.
Wait, that's where you met him at?
That's where I met him. He was at home. I told him we were working on something together. I just so happened to mention I was a comedian. And then he was like, well, I'm the bassist for Green Jelly. And I'm like, no, you're not. And he's like, yeah, man, I am. And I was like, fine, I believe you. So I took a picture with him, and only to find out Green Jelly actually changes their bassist, like, depending on what region they're playing in. So it depends.
Oh.
You know, like, you could have...
It's like a traveling, like, he's not really in the band?
Right. He's just like one of those touring members that they put at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. But not even that. He wasn't even on, like, anything. He could have been lying. You know what I mean? But
he could have been. It's unfortunate that your jelly was tainted, you know. And, you're like, were you around when you were Green Jello when you started and you had to change it? It was a whole thing and all that. That was a big controversy. I remember when I was in high school.
It was hard to believe. Well, he was in his like early 20s too, and I was like, no way, you're not, because you would have been not born when that song came out. And he's like, that's when I found out they actually changed their basses, like depending, and other musicians. Like their drummers too, I think is not their original drummer. I think they changed drummer. I think the lead singer and guitarist is the only guy who's actually in the band still.
Okay. Almost like, you know, Trent Reznor is 9 Inch Nails, and then you don't always know who else is in the band, you know?
Yeah.
So you basically, you met a guy who works at Home Depot. Like, I mean, to be fair. Yeah.
That is what, and I posted on Instagram, and I think I hashtagged Home Depot. So really, I gave them a little bit more commercialization. You know,
that's how doers get things done, I've heard. And do you think he posted on Instagram that I met comedian Patrick O'Hara?
In my head, yes.
That's okay. Because at a certain point, like one of you guys is the meter and one is the greeter, so to speak. In other words, like who's really meeting who and saying, "Oh wow, you're you." Like, no way, you're you. Like somebody's got the upper hand. At this point, it might be you. I mean, you've got a 10+ year comedy career going on, right?
15. Actually. This year is like 15 for me.
Wow. Are we going to do maybe like a rehash of the original set, maybe?
That's actually not a bad idea. I was thinking about doing a special towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Where I do like kind of all of my jokes and start out with like my beginning career where it was like shitty jokes. Mm-hmm. Is it okay if I swear? I swear.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Well, I start with my bad jokes in the beginning, and then they progressively get better where they start at a 2 and they end on like a 6.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like
because it is a work in progress, so you got to leave room to improve there. Right. I remember another one from your first ever stand-up. You were getting heckled by some woman.
Oh yeah.
She kept saying, "How does that make you feel?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was really weird. Like what a weird heckle. And I don't like hecklers to begin with, and like I love when they get destroyed. But the idea of how does that make you feel? I just thought that was a strange thing to keep saying to you.
Yeah. And I remember trying to ignore it because it's a weird heckle to try to respond to, because you're like, I don't feel this is a joke. I don't feel really anything.
Almost like she's trying to like do like a therapist joke. Is that the idea? Like she's trying to do like now tell me how that made you feel. I was trying to analyze, like, you're not even heckling correctly.
Right. She was not, and it's my first time ever on stage, and she knew this. So why are you even trying to heckle me in the first place? Like, I don't have a good, I think I came back with some kind of, I remember my comeback, and it wasn't a great comeback, but it worked because my family was there, so they thought it was hilarious. My family and you.
Yeah, me, I think Bobby Cranston was there, and we were clapping hard because we wanted to make it known that we were there.
But she was like, she kept saying, "How did that make you feel?" And I said, "I don't know. You have to ask my family." And then I pointed like this to the crowd, to indicate that my family
they were there.
They loved the fact that I made them part of the show, so they clapped and they laughed when that was really just a really bad comeback.
But it ended her heckling.
It did. She stopped heckling. So
there you go, because she knew she'd get her ass kicked by an entire family after the show. You watch out for the O'Haras, all right? I'll tell you that much.
Cool. we're Irish and we've been drinking.
That's
so,
right. Yeah. Well, that's a little redundant, but
right. It's for sure.
It's assumed we know this. So obviously comedy, radio, TV, you done a lot, met some people there. Going to the comic side again, if you were a superhero, I've got superpowers, what would be your powers? What would be your name, your whole gimmick, and who would play you in the movie?
Okay. So this is multiple question answer. So I have 2 answers for my superpower.
Okay.
There's the camera. 2.
Yep.
For my superpower. One would that my thumb turns into a quarter so that when I go to Aldi, I have instant access to a cart all the time.
That's good.
Yeah,
a removable quarter, or like it like forms a quarter so you keep it in the cart?
It forms into the quarter and I keep it in the cart, so I just look like I'm pushing because I want people to be like, "Oh my God, he's doing something illegal." You know what I mean?
Right, illegal, or even worse, this guy has a quarter thumb,
right?
Quarter, like a second thumb, which is a quarter, like protuberance, if you will.
Is it a counterfeit quarter too? They might be thinking it's counterfeit, so they could get me on that.
We got.
I don't want any trouble.
Yeah, we got old skin quarters here again. It's like we don't need that. Now you only have one hand free to like pull stuff off like that you're going to buy though. Then,
right.
So that's a little bit of a hindrance there, which is actually good. It gives your character some like some faults.
Every character has a kryptonite.
Okay, so you got a built-in quarter in your thumb. That's one.
Yeah. The other one is I have X-ray vision.
Mm-hmm.
But I can only see through my wife's clothes because she would murder everybody if I could see everybody else through their clothes.
So X-ray to see like the nude body, or are we going to the skeleton X-ray?
No, just the nude. I don't want to see the inner workings. You know what I mean?
So how about this? And you can run this by her if you like, just to make sure it's all kosher. The power on her goes to her nude body, because it's like a low power X-ray, but everybody else you see their bones. Is that still okay?
I don't know. I don't think so because I'm. Do
you get off on bones?
No, I don't know.
Are you a skelephile?
I'm a skelephile. That's a new thing.
It could be. Yeah.
That's going to be the title of this show. If you do, I don't know if you do titles of shows.
Usually I just put your name in there. We'll put it in the notes as well. Yeah, we'll put it in the notes there. And you know what? For Halloween this year, it's a reason to do your David S. Pumpkins, one of the side guys, one of the skeleton B-boys, if you will.
Right.
But so X-ray vision, but only works on your wife.
Only works on my wife. Otherwise, like I said, she will murder everybody. And that's
so you're probably not going to be called by any superhero group to save anybody, because I'm right. I mean, there's not a lot of situations where like, quick, we need someone who can get the Aldi's carts, or quick, we need someone to see, your wife's body. There's not a ton of, we'll call it turmoil going on that involves those two scenarios.
I thought of plots in my head though.
Oh, okay. Let's
plots.
Let's hear them then. Okay.
Where my guy's Quarterman. That's his name. Quarterman.
Quarterman. Okay.
That's his thing. Okay. That's what he's
known
for.
Yeah.
Here's the plot. A woman is encaged by Aldi carts. Okay.
Okay.
And there's only a certain amount of time that they can get this one out of the Aldi carts. Otherwise, they're all going to collapse on her. That's the way they're built. I don't know who the evil person is. You know what I mean?
Well, it's probably the owner of Aldi's.
Maybe. Mr. Aldi.
Yeah, Jeff Aldi.
Jeff Aldi. Jeff Aldi. But anyway, so they're like, oh my God, we don't have enough quarters to get all these carts.
Yeah.
Because they have to get them all at once or something like that.
Right.
Quickly, right?
Yeah. Because she's like in a cart jail, or are they on top of her? Like, I can't get out. I'm trapped.
They're like, you ever see like in the circus, they got the motorcycle guy who runs around in the sphere and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of built like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But it's going to fall down on her at a certain point. That's just the way it's built.
Yeah.
And if they do, they collapse. She.
Well,
Well,
maybe injured, I'd say. I mean, it's carts. I mean,
yeah.
It's just
let's make my story less interesting by saying she might just get like a couple of cuts, or they'll call them lacerations.
Okay, then you create the scenario where your wife could almost die from carts. Then, okay, that's the scenario you need. I'm on board.
Yeah, we just need an artist. Really, I already have it written out.
Okay, Quarterman.
Yeah.
And so now, correct me, I haven't been to Aldi in a while. When you take your quarter out, do you still get the cart? So you just activate each one, or do you have to
No,
keep it?
you have to keep your quarter in the cart to activate the cart and keep it going.
So how are you? So how are you doing that to get rid of all the carts if it's only in one at a time?
Well,
How do
I
you,
have to, okay. So the situation gets a little more drastic because
yeah,
I can only do one card at a time, right?
right, yeah,
So now it's like a few panels later, people are bored, right? Reading this comic because it's
right,
like, okay, and you got card number 6.
right,
Okay.
exactly. There's like several issues to get to that. Yeah, okay.
Finally, card 20. Did he save? Nope, nope. There's still 20 more cards that
There's more.
we have
Yeah,
20 more panels that we
There's
have to
more
fill.
carts. Yeah. Wow.
So,
Okay, I get
yeah.
it. One would hope that, and you working at Comiskey Park, you probably saw the guy with the change on his belt making
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
He is also a bit of a quarter man, so it's kind of he's got quarters ready to go.
He's my evil nemesis. He's my nemesis.
He might say, "Quarterman, Carlton Fisk is over here. Go check it out." And you're like, "I'll be right back." And all of a sudden he saves your wife with
That's
actual
true.
quarters.
That's
And
true.
she's like, "Oh, fake quarterman. You used real quarters, but you're fake quarterman. My husband is real quarterman, but fake quarters. I like you better." That could happen. That's kind of a twist.
Oh, you just killed Quarterman.
Kill quarterman. Who's playing quarterman in the movie?
You know, the person, I've thought about this, and I don't know if people are going to agree with this, and I kind of see it. But when I get my hair cut,
Yeah.
the woman always tells me I remind her of Gerard Butler.
Oh, interesting.
I think it would be great to have Gerard Butler play me in a movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I've never thought about that before. That'd be great to get. That'd be a good get for Gerard Butler as quarterman.
Should I take the help with the? Do I look like him without my glasses on?
I would say neither for me, but that's just me though. I don't. I don't have my glasses on. That's my excuse.
I don't know if she knows who Gerard Butler is. That's why.
That's true. Yeah. I always thought, like back in the day, to me, you always resembled MCA from the Beastie Boys. That's why I always saw that in you.
That would be great if he could, but he can't now. So
unfortunately, he can't. Yeah, I always saw that. There was also, I got to think about. There was another famous person that you always reminded me of too, but I can't place it. I'll think of that one. But Gerard Butler would be a great get there for, and it would be called Quarterman, the movie.
Quarterman, the movie where Gerard Butler plays me. I think that's fantastic.
That's a winner. Hey, everything is greenlit on Netflix, so you're all good.
And then I wouldn't have to worry about seeing my wife naked through X-ray. I might actually get it to see her in real life naked.
Yeah, because you're an actor now. Yeah,
I have a Gerard Butler fantasy. And
so Patrick, you've done radio, you've done TV, you've done comedy. What's your advice to someone watching this saying, how do I get into those creative fields? Should I even do it? And kind of, what can I expect? Kind of imagine if you are now in the green room and someone met you and you don't want to be a jerk to them. You want to be cool. What would you say to them for advice?
For all of those fields, my advice would be the same thing. And that is, if it's really something you want to do, don't ever give up on it.
Good words of wisdom, because it's easy to give up. And then when you give up, you have all the what ifs. What if I stuck? What if I did? And when you don't, you just stick with it. You see what happens.
I've achieved everything as a comedian. I've achieved everything I wanted to. You know what I mean? I've featured, I've headlined, I've done 30 minutes on stage before. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
So it's like, for me, nobody really knows who I am, but I've done stuff that I never thought were possible. Yeah. And that's because I kept trying. You know what I mean? And I still haven't given up. You know what I mean? I'm still like on that. I try. I don't know what my ultimate goal. That's the thing, is I never set like an ultimate goal. Mm-hmm. I just, every goal that I've accomplished, I look at my goals that I've accomplished in the past and say, wow, look at that. Look what I've done.
Yeah. Well, you got on the train and it's like, why should it stop? So it goes to the next stop from there. Right. And it's pretty great because you've done a lot, but of course more doors could be opened. More things could happen, but you've accomplished things if you're checking stuff off. You've done it all. You mentioned doing like a long set, 30-minute set. And I know we wanted to talk a little bit about, before we wrap up, about sort of like some favorite comedy. Do you have like a favorite stand-up special or a couple of them, or kind of, who you really idolized?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do is like Mitch Hedberg. I get a lot of comparisons to Mitch
Yeah, I
Hedberg,
could see that.
and that's purposeful. You know what I mean? I know it's always like it's kind of corny and cheesy to sort of like copy somebody's like delivery, but that's what I do is I sort of idolized him, and so I was like, well, I'm a dry humor person too.
Yeah.
So him and Stephen Wright rank up there for me as like I don't have particular specials because now you can watch everything on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't have to. But if you YouTube like Stephen Wright, they even have like a YouTube where it's like
Stephen Wright. Growing up, me and my brother used to watch Stephen Wright specials all the time. I mean, just like he would say things like, I'm not even going to do it right, but I go to the doctor and they said, have you ever fallen asleep driving? I said, no, I've woken up driving a few times. So. Dead Presidents, awesome Deadpool book. If you're thinking, I like Deadpool in the movies, well, you know what? You don't have to read all the comics, and right. Some are better than others. Like my favorite Deadpool stories are written by Joe Kelly, who was his original writer when he got his first solo series in the late 90s, early 2000s. But it doesn't mean that's the only thing that's good. These are amazing, and these are right up there. So pretty great. And
this was I told you this privately, a fun, quick read.
Yeah.
It's a fun read, and you don't have to dedicate a ton of time to it.
Maybe an hour to get through the whole thing, maybe,
Yeah. And it's like nonstop, like every page, there's something funny happening.
Yeah. Signature Deadpool stuff is in there, and it's great. And so if you want a book to jump into because you like him in the movies, check that one out. Patrick, what are ways people to watch all of your things and see what you're doing?
Probably, I'm on Instagram at Patrick O Comedy. I'm going to start posting more reels and stuff like that about my comedy now. And then also on YouTube, just look up Patrick O'Hara, and eventually you'll find me after a few people.
I've learned the short form is what people like, so.
So I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start uploading like just clips of my comedy on Instagram. So it's probably the best way for people to really see me.
Follow Patrick O'Hara, also Patrick O Comedy, wherever you get all your stuff. Make sure to comment on our YouTube videos, comics.fm. Subscribe. If you want to get some swag for the show, you can get a shirt, a mug, and a sticker. Go to comics.fm. Yes, that's an actual website. Everyone thinks it's just a name. No, it actually works. Put it in there. Because when you go to comics.fm, up in the little search bar there, it gives you everything. The TikTok, the Instagram, everything you could possibly want and more. Patrick, thanks for coming on and talking to me about comedy, Deadpool, The River, the third alumni of The River, the guy who I took your job. I mean,
you could say I started your radio career.
There's no doubt you did. You stepped aside.
I paved the way.
You paved the way. You know what I mean?
Handed the torch.
Yeah. It's like, I'm trying to think of a sports analogy, but you stepped aside and like, listen, this guy, this next kid's coming along. This next kid, he's like same age as you, or maybe even a year older. That's okay. This next kid's coming along. You're going to love him. I'm going to see my way out. I know the kangaroo pajama pants guy is still going to file a complaint at some point, but you did a lot there. It was awesome because that's how I got to meet you as well. And basically catch all the cool things you've done. You've done something that I have yet to have the balls to do, and that is stand-up comedy. So
I only have one ball, so really it takes one ball.
That was in your first bit. You showed your mom. You showed your mom your balls. I remember that.
Yeah.
So how many people say, "Oh, I could be a comedian. I could do that. I could do that. I could do that," and it's like, dude, shut the hell up. You did it, and you're still doing it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. It really is because
it's one of my favorite things that I've ever done.
It's amazing. Yeah. So I applaud you for not only doing it 15 years ago, but sticking to it as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for another 15 for the big 30th show,
Right. When I get somebody pays me at least $1 to like do a special or something.
That's right. Please. Hey, you know what? Your final show, Carlton Fisk gets wheeled in. He's got a walker with like the little tennis balls on the thing. And he comes in and he's like, my friend, I owe you an autograph. And you're like, your hands don't even work anymore. No, thank you.
I think the perfect ending to that, though, would be, I owe you an autograph, but I'm sorry. I still don't do that.
That's right. And then you do get fired from your current job for the request as well.
Right.
Awesome. Patrick O'Hara, thanks for coming on Comics.fm. I appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, man. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.